Good morning, everyone, and happy Tuesday. Thank you for tuning into the Lene Show. Today's episode is going to be discussing communication. Just because personally I'm going through a lot in my life, and I've learned over the years what I could work on when it comes to communication and what I could ask of from others when it comes to communicating. So I'm sure we all know what communication is, but just in case, I'll give you the textbook dictionary of communication. Communication is the act of conveying meanings from one entity or group to another through the use of mutual understandings, whether it's through signs, symbols, verbal, nonverbal, written, visual. Those are all forms of communication. And we all have different ways to communicate. And today I'm just going to talk about how I communicate, what I've learned over the years, like I said, about my communication skills, and then wonder if other people feel like their communication has come from how they're brought up, trauma in your life, not even, it doesn't even have to be trauma. It could also be just how people receive you, and do you verbalize when something is wrong? And if you do, how do you do it? Are you kind of harsh, straightforward? Do you take time to sit down and really think things through? Because those all affect how we communicate and how people communicate with us. So I'm just going to give an example of myself. Growing up as a child and pretty early into my adulthood, I want to say, I was not a verbal communicator. I was definitely one of those people that kind of sat back, let things kind of happen, and didn't really express myself when I felt like my feelings were hurt or I felt like I was being mistreated. And I don't even know, I can't even tell you where that started, but I want to tell you at an early age, I felt like I wasn't listened to. In other episodes, I've talked about being raised by my grandmother. Initially, my mom did have issues when she had me and my brother, and she had to take time to get herself together. So my grandmother raised us in the very beginning for a few years. And I want to say anybody who has like a younger brother, how, especially if he's the only boy, how the sun and the moon sets on boys. I feel like it's like, don't, whether it comes to their mother, their grandmother, whatever, it's like the boys are like, oh my goodness. So that was how I felt when I was younger, that my brother got a lot more attention. He got a lot more of what he wanted. It was just, everything was okay. And then Ty was the good kid. Ty was the one who'd listen to you, who'd do her chores. Well, we didn't really have chores, but I cleaned up. I cleaned up after myself. I cleaned up after my brother. I'd clean up after my grandmother. Heck, I was that kid. I got good grades. I didn't really talk back. I mean, listen, I got in trouble like everybody else, but by trouble, it was very small and far between. I just wasn't one of those kids who was constantly throwing tantrums and, just doing stuff like that. Just wasn't me. And my grandmother was very, very strict. This is a West Indian woman, so she really didn't play those games. But with my brother, he got away with a little bit more because I always said because he was a boy. And, they loved themselves, the boy. And so early on, I can say that little things like when he would get a toy and I didn't get it because she can only afford one, why get one? Or, if he didn't want to eat something in particular, he got other options and things like that. And I was the one who I had to listen. I had to do what I was told. And of course, when you're little, you think like, why? Why do I have to do it? Why do I have to do my homework? Why do I have to get good grades? But I didn't say anything. And by say anything, I mean, I never even said my feelings are hurt. I don't mean I was supposed to go in there and be like, Grandma, what you doing? No. But I didn't say, or I didn't even question, like, how come? Why is it this way? And I do feel like kids can ask questions. I definitely feel like it's the way the question is asked. It's communication, right? Respectful communication for your parents. So I feel like if a kid comes to you respectfully and wants to know things, there's no reason why you can't answer them. Obviously you're not going to come at them. So that's where I'm saying from that age on, I kind of felt like I felt like I wasn't as important, but I didn't verbalize it, right? So that's one part. Then as I got older and I started going to school, I was picked on a little bit. I was really skinny, really shy. I did not go out of my way to make friends and just go, hey, everybody, it's me. I wasn't that girl. I wasn't in the mix. I didn't want any of the drama or the non-drama. Just I was quiet, and I got picked on a little bit. So so there it is again with the communication. I didn't defend myself. I didn't stand up I didn't stand up to the kids who picked on me, who pushed me around, pulled my hair. I didn't do any of that stuff. And once again, I just didn't really know how to verbalize that this is what was going on. I didn't go home and tell my mom, like, hey, I'm being picked on. I didn't really know what to say to these kids other than you guys are a bunch of bitches and mean. But that was not me. I was not going to say that. So here I am again, still being very quiet about the fact that I'm picked on, that, other girls are bothering me, and I have no idea why they're bothering me, to be honest, and I'm not speaking up on it, right? And then still at home, now with my mom, my brother is still, the kid that's getting what he wants, and, we're making arrangements and changes to fit him and fit the behavior and fit the attitude and fit the tantrum, and we're still just kind of going along, and I'm sitting here in the back like, hey, guys, do you notice me, Ty, the kid with the good grades and the clean room and the respectfulness and coming home and still going unnoticed? I want to say literally up until high school, this is how I pretty much was. From birth till freshman year in high school, I was that kid. The good kid, the quiet kid, the kid that got picked on, and I didn't fight. I didn't pop off. I wasn't out there defending myself. I just kind of let it go. You know what I'm saying? Like, I felt like someday this is going to be different. And then I went to high school. I just want to point out that I went to an all-white high school. Out of, I don't even know how many students it was, because the school was pretty big. But in my class, just in my class alone, let's just say, I don't even know how many kids there were, to be honest. I'm trying to think. I don't think we had 100, right? I don't know. I don't even remember the remote number. I don't know. Can you have 100 kids? I guess you could. So let's just say I had maybe 100 or less. I don't recall the number. I'll have to look now that I think about it, because we had a really big senior class. Out of all of those, there were probably 5 minorities. No, literally 5. And I was the only black girl. And I'm only half black, but the bottom line is I was the only black girl. Everyone else, the other minorities, were Hispanic, full Hispanic, and dang, and I want to say there might have been an Indian girl, an Indian and an Asian girl in there too. Okay, but no brown skins. How about that? Because obviously we all know that you can be Hispanic and be brown. You can be Indian, even Asian, because, Filipinos, whatever. There were no colored, okay? Out of the whole school, there was probably one colored to a grade. Okay, just imagine that. Okay, it's one thing to be the only black, but it's another thing where there aren't even minorities your skin complexion. Okay, so there was one black senior class, one black in the junior, one black in the sophomore, and I was the one black in the freshman. Okay, that's it. Only girl with brown skin. Okay, so I don't know, I'm sure other females have been in this situation in their lifetime, but when I'm telling you, if you've never been in it, you don't understand it. It was a culture shock for me, when I tell you. And up until this point, obviously, as a woman of color, I knew what racism was. I was raised in a household where my grandmother made sure that I knew, what slavery was. I was taught it, because you sure as hell wasn't learning about it in school, at least not, you got the textbook version But I had to learn even about my ancestors, and I also had to learn, like I said, I have as a biracial family, my mom and my grandmother wanted to make sure that I understood that, yes, we we are a biracial family, and even I'm not even talking about my Spanish side. I'm talking about my white side, my Caucasian side of my family. And yes, these are our family members, just this is our bloodline, but you still need to understand, communication changed. Okay, this is where it went downhill. It started in high school. Okay, so freshman year in high school, the things that happened that changed me as a person. So the first thing was, I'm sure everybody knows back then, I was big on my urban wear. I loved me some Rockaware and my baby fat and my FUBU. I was one of those. I had it. I had my little Gap too. My mom with her little Gap because, oh, I don't want you to, I need you to dress this way if we go out, whatever. But listen, I love my little stuff. So I had me a Rockaware book bag, and I thought it was fly, and I loved it. And freshman year, my book bag got stolen. And by the time it was found, it was painted all over. Everything that my mom had paid for, my binder, my books, and I was one of those kids. I don't consider it a nerd because I was pretty much a B student. I mean, I got nothing less than a B as far as the end of the grade overall. I always had A's and B's. So, I don't consider myself a nerd, but what I do consider myself is I wanted to get good grades. I cared about my grades. I did work as hard as I could. And, as long as I was passing and, I wasn't, like I said, no C's, but, I did good in school, nothing crazy, but, like I said, A, B student. But I was one of those kids who loved to go school shopping, and my mom knew that, and it was a thing me and her did. I was that kid that had her uniform because, yes, I went to Catholic school my whole life. I've only went to public school once. In my whole, from pre-K all the way to 12th grade, I went to Catholic school. 1 year I went to public school, and that's because my mom was changing schools and didn't like the Catholic school I was in, and she needed time to do her research. So for 1 year, I went to public school. Other than that, I am a Catholic school girl. So I was the kid who had my uniform ironed, ready, was hanging up. I went to bed early. I got up. I made myself breakfast, all that stuff. I just thought I'd throw that out there. But school supplies, because I went to Catholic school, I didn't get the luxury of, public school clothes and going school clothes shopping. Like I said, just that 1 year. And then, to be honest, I think until you do it, you don't realize the work that goes into regular clothes. And I was so happy to go back to Catholic school because it was so hard that 1 year that I even went to public school to pick out what I was wearing, to make sure I try not to wear the same thing. And then I had to wear my Jordans a lot more. Like, I had Jordans, but they barely got worn. Why? Because I went to Catholic school and I really only had to wear them whenever I was out, which, wasn't a lot. So they got scuffed up, whatever. That's my little rant. But I was that kid who had my pencil, like I would get my pencils and my binder. My binder would be designed. It'd have like my Lisa Frank stickers. And freshman year, I was obsessed with the Spice Girls. I mean, previously to my freshman year, but that year was I love the Spice Girls from the minute they came out. To this day, I'm a huge Spice Girl fan. So, because they were just like a different girl group that kind of talk to me. I was a fan of a lot of people back then, just in case some of my sisters, I loved me some Brandy and Mariah and all that, but they didn't really speak to me back then. Like I said, I was a quiet kid. I felt like a little bit of out of place because of the being picked on, and just my home life was kind of up and down, and the Spice Girls really, really did something for me. They were one of those groups, when we talk about groups that you feel like changed you and made you independent and fierce and proud to be a woman. That's what the Spice Girls did for me. So anyway, I had my little binder, my stickers, everything. And I'm a neat person. I'm very neat. And my stuff was organized, and that's just me. Okay. I'm a neat freak. And so when my book bag was taken, not only is it the fact that my mom spent a lot of money, and it was money I earned, as far as I would, like I said, I was a good kid. My mom had no problems going out of her way and going to Staples and getting the specific things I wanted, the type of pencils, the type of notebook, the calculator, the binder, and all this stuff, and the book bag. My mom was all for making sure that I had what I wanted for my school year. And so for my stuff to be taken, then drawings all over it, paint, whatever, pages ripped out,